And we're live. Well, not really. Welcome to Blackwater D&D. As you can tell, we've had a little bit of a change. Emma could not join us today.
I'm Emma. What are you talking about?
We love the new look.
Your name says Adam.
They'll never notice. Shit, I'll change that. Give me a second.
Adam, Emma, Emda, Emdem was not able to join us, and so we have Adam with us today, and we are also pre-recording because our Monday didn't work out. We still want you folks to still have your usual Monday. So Adam, welcome to Chatwater. I don't think we've had you since we talked about Finnan.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, I haven't been on Chatwater since. Thanks for having me.
Welcome back.
Very excited. Yeah, it's
good stuff. Last session was a wild one.
Holy shit!
I didn't get to watch it live. I am all caught up, but at around like 11 o'clock, when we take our breaks, we usually do like a check-in where everyone, like, we do a little Facebook chat thing, and everyone checks in and see how they're doing and everything. By 11 o'clock, there was no Facebook check-in, and I was like, I messaged Cody, and I was like, "Hey, Cody, everything going okay over there?" Like, he's like, "We didn't take a break." I was like, "Oh, okay." He's like, "Yeah, it's been a pretty wild session." And so, it was, I think, it was established it's been the longest combat you guys have ever had.
And I think, rounds-wise, it was only one round longer than the Velsum fight.
But time-wise,
the difference was, in the Velsum fight, we went, let's kill that guy, and we just kept killing that guy. And there was dangers and shit, but it was like spatial reasoning as we tried to run up a mountain in 3 separate groups while getting chased by giants. Like, it was so difficult. Every round, everyone was like, okay, so where am I again? How many people? Map this out for me. How far am I from this? Like,
not to mention we had an additional player, so those 7 rounds have like an additional 7 rounds within them. Yeah, and so like, this is something Adam, you and I were talking about just the other day. I was talking about how like I miss playing on maps because like, even though we all have access to the same information, up until like last session, we've always been like, and so Tim, where am I? Like he didn't tell us everything we'd know. So I was like, especially when it was like, we have this group, that group, it's 140 feet. I was like, this is going to be too much for Tim. Like, he's already got to worry about 2 different groups. And so I'm interested to see if there's like room for like a DM assistant that isn't just a backseat D&D, a DM. But I'm like, especially when we like, I don't know if this is like a permanent thing or maybe just for this wild situation, but I guess the idea of like when it's theater of the mind, the like keeper of the logistics.
So I've actually had this thought, and it was something that I, when I was starting to DM, had this sort of idea for, but it was essentially like, you have an extra person. So 2 people DM, at one time, and essentially one person handles all the actual mechanics and the other person handles all the role play, because like, you'd have a person who just does PCs, he just does like those interactions, the accents, the voices, like that's his whole thing. So then and then you have the other person who does the like tracking of the stats and tracking of the monsters and the like, and then you split that into two different pieces, which is essentially, I guess, what you were doing, because you were handling a lot of the mechanics of the movement.
Just locations.
I think the like real difficulty was, I think there was something like 750 feet difference between groups. So like the top group to like my group, there's so much distance. So even if we had a map, we probably couldn't have used one because we were just so fucking far away from each other. So it was just,
from where you started initiative, you were 800 feet away from where we started at the top.
And so like, it was a really incredible challenge to be like, it was a slogfest as we just like, and the thing is, it wasn't that long a combat as far as fighting goes. It was just like Finnan getting hit in the back of the head with rocks for 3 rounds.
And it was also crazy because you guys were all going in pretty tapped. Like
nothing.
Like, you guys were all like essentially fighting on half a tank of gas left, like if not less. Like health wise, a lot of you guys were exhausted. At least one point of exhaustion. Most of you guys had like almost no spells left. I know, Adam, you said you had no spells. Oh no, you used the one.
I used my 2. I used my 2 at the start. So I used the teleport and
fly.
Mislead.
Oh yeah, and then you did the stone
and then
skin.
I tried to do the stone skin, which is my like 6th level Mystic Arcanum, and it just, I fucking hate that spell. I don't know why I have that spell.
Everybody had the worst dice rolls as well. Poor M was, I think, she was bleeding pretty heavily into her character in terms of shouting and frustration. But I think the my heart goes out most to poor Jen, who like, can we just say that I'm glad you guys killed everybody and I'm glad you all survived, but I really didn't want that last one to die because I wanted the mansion to be like, I wanted it to be worth something. Like it is worth something, but I really wanted it to be like, you guys all retreat into the mansion and the guys are all there, but you killed them all. And then he was like, and the mansion pops up. And I'm like, oh my God, that is like,
even if like more giants had turned up at the bottom of the mountain and they were like, oh, go. Like,
because that's what we did last time.
Yeah.
Like the last time it was like, that was clutch. We didn't want to fight those guys. She saved us. And this time we were just able to fight those guys.
Well, the thing is, if she dropped it, I don't know if she would have had the slots left to cast it again. So you guys would have been exposed for the night and possibly run into more issues. So it was still very important, but it was definitely like, it was definitely not like you held on for so long for her to cast it. And then it was like, oh, we kill everybody. And it was like,
I mean, I will. Sorry, you guys.
What was really cool about this combat to me was it sort of came in like stages where like initially it was like, we need to get Yana safe. And like, it was the like, because for you, Adam, it was like, can I keep Yana safe? And now I need to keep Clack safe. As like,
people just kept coming to me, and I'm like, no, go away, fuck off.
And so then it became Yana's safe. Now we hold this ground because the giants have caught up to us, as the folks from the top like trickle in. And that was really cool because like Fly was on all of us, but one of us is a rogue and one of us casted haste. So like, fucking Callie was down the hill in no time. Like Limerick was there like a couple beats later, and then it felt so satisfying to finally show up. Like I'm going as fast as my character physically can, and I'm like, well, I'm finally here, kids. But like as people start showing up, then we turn the tides, and like that felt really cool.
I'm not gonna lie, there was a moment there where everything was still alive, and it was when they surrounded me, and I was like, Tim, I can't move without getting 3 attacks of opportunity. So I cast Mirror Image, and that Mirror Image was me being like, this might save my life. I had 11 hit points left. Like I was like, I'm gonna go down so soon. And so like
giants, they
hit fucking hard. And I was in my head, I was like, this could be a TPK. Like this could very easily be everyone dead.
I mean, Neppy had already used her shadows, so she didn't have that to fall back on. And then I laughed to myself when everyone congregated on you guys with Clack, because you have these giants who are throwing rocks and everyone was beautifully spread out. And you were being a distraction. And then everyone's first move was like, let's all go stand in a small little circle, all huddled down within range. everyone last night, like literally wanted to die. Like everyone had this hero complex last night where they were like, I'm going to die. Like Callie was like, at the end there, when you had the one giant, Callie was like, I step in front of him. And then Letters was like, no, I step in front of him. And then Limerick was like, no, I step in front of him. And I was like, first of all, Limerick's super squishy, so like definite death wish. Callie's got like 10 hit points left.
Yeah, she was
definite
so
death wish. I'm like, what is wrong with you guys?
Everyone was like, savior, trying to save you, and I was just trying to get the fuck out. I was like, survive.
That was really cool for Finnan though, is I think this was the first time we really got to see your staff really come into play. Like I wasn't aware that your staff had like 6 charges of summon a horse in it
and mirror image.
And I realized like that's such a great item for a warlock, because warlocks they just lack sustain in combat. They get 2, maybe 3 spells and then they're out. and then to be able to be like, and the horse does this, and no earth-shattering ones, but
just
something
2
that
extra
wasn't
spells
just
that I can cast 6 times in a day.
Yeah. That's great, and really using it in a cool way where it's like, oh no, we can't sled him up the hill. I was like, oh, that's so bad, but it's like, haha, I can resummon
New
the
horse.
Oh, what was it? Snow Fox Given?
No Fox Given.
No Fox Given.
Actually, Snow Fox Given is so much better. Damn
but
it!
You didn't say it.
I know. I said no Fox Given.
I mean, here on Chatwater, we retcon lore all the time.
It was Snow Fox Given.
It's Snow Fox Given. Yeah.
No, it was a great interaction. I do think it's funny that you guys probably, like, in my mind, you guys probably would have leveled up before getting there. And that's why the difficulty was so much higher.
When Tim was like, you did travel very far, I went metagame brain. Oh no, we were supposed to grow through that travel.
We've crossed over the zone. Like we've stopped. We're questing in the wrong place right now. There's a level differential. Yeah, because I think like
it would have taken at least 2 or 3 sessions to get there.
Like just eyeballing what the like encounter felt like, that would have been like a challenge rating 18, maybe 17, 18, like all combined. Like that was rough. Like it was definitely a hard one. When the fucking frost salamander turned up and I was like, we the giants are enough. I don't have to deal with the giants.
It was one thing that's, Tim talks about is we're all super powerful and like we can handle a lot of things. And so to go into that where everyone is tapped, like I felt super confident because like I hadn't taken a hit. I was like, I'm fine. I just got to get there. But like because I'm just like, for most of that combat, I'm just sitting and watching because I'm like just flying. And like to see people who are usually like, yeah, I can take this, I can shrug this off, be like, oh no, this is different. Like we did not expect this to happen. This plan was not well thought out, although the execution was perfect. Like
your firewall was so clutch.
So good, yeah.
So clutch. I like that. I think was what turned the tides against the TPK, because there would have been no way for anyone to get down to Cali without also going down. Like it would have involved splitting the party too much. Like it just gave you the time you needed to regroup.
That for sure. You only need 1 round. You only need 1 round to like steady yourself.
But I was just thinking now about the first offensive spell that I cast. I cast at like 30 health, and I started at 155. Like I was at my max with Armor of Agathis, and I'd used my blend to half damage on an attack. So like the first damaging spell that I threw out, I was 30 health or like thereabouts. So that was the other thing, is like the combat, again, you say like the combat was in stages. So much of the combat for Finnan was just like weathering the storm as he tried to get Yana and Clack to safety.
I mean, so many turns were like people barely surviving, because there was that one where Kokanee got hit a bunch and barely survived. Callie barely survived. Like Neppy went down and like
quite
she
a
was
few
the
times.
only one who really dropped.
Twice,
I think.
Twice.
Yeah. And like there was a turn where I was like, I'm 10 turns, and like I get an extra 50 hit points, and even after that one, I was like, oh, I don't think I can take maybe 1, but not 2 more hits.
She dropped down 2 death saves at one point too, like right at the beginning, because he stabbed her.
And I think someone else healed her there. I think it was Healing Word, I think, was thrown out. Maybe Kokanee.
Kokanee.
And then the second time she went down.
Her twice.
Honestly, that's the other thing that fucking the Wall of Fire did, was it gave me light. So I didn't have to use my action. So when she was down in light. I could use my waxing light, bring her back up, step out of the light, and start shooting shit. Like
the wall also allowed Kokanee and Limerick to make their attacks without disadvantage, like because they were the wall because of the light, right?
Yeah.
No, the wall was so clutch. I felt really bad. Like I mentioned that I felt bad for Yana just because she kind of got like she had a great sort of like plan and it worked really well, but like in terms of like playing, I know it's not the most exciting style of playing.
The real hero of the session was Jen, that she just like
she committed.
She committed to it. She stuck it through.
100%.
Like, I am so impressed by that. I don't think I could have done that.
I would have
been like, I'm gonna fight. Like, it was very impressive.
But I felt for Em in this one because so many of her things didn't work. She cast darkness, she went down, she lost darkness. She cast spiritual weapon, she went down, she lost spiritual weapon. Like, so many of her Toll the Deads didn't work. She made the one, I don't know what spell she was casting, I don't think she said, but she cast the one where they needed to make charisma saving throws. And they all passed with flying colors. Like, everything she was trying was just getting shut down, like left, right, and center. They were almost like the perfect monsters created to battle you guys with their cold, necrotic, and radiant resistances. So they were like, everything that you guys do. I
mean, they were giant paladins.
Warlock paladins, weirdly.
Well, there's a warlock thing that allows you to smite. It's the Eldritch Smite. Yeah. But like the thing that I think of, like, why I've been struggling with Flesh to Stone so much is because like Bane and those spells that don't do anything if you save are awesome low level. They're awesome low level because like 60 to 70% of the time the creature doesn't save, and then you get your effect. Is really fun. But at the level that we're at 14th level, we're fighting massive creatures. Their saving throws are insane. Like these giants, they're giants, so they probably have very high constitution. They probably have like a 9 or 10 constitution saving throw. So like throwing out a constitution saving throw spell that doesn't do anything if they save is not going to do anything. Like it's the problem of like,
at this level, it really is level, you have to be a smart player to be like, that's a giant. So I guess like charisma seems like a safe bet, but they're warlocks. So you're like, oh shit, I guess dexterity. Like most creatures really will have maybe 1 or 2, like intelligence saving throws or like, or dexterity. I think that's the only thing you could probably hit those guys reliably with.
No, and it's it's the same thing that I used to have with Kale, because when I played him, I stacked all my spells at the end, but they were all spells that were reliant on saving throws. And when you fight the guys who are at the higher end of your difficulty rating, they make their saving throws, and then you've just burnt these high level spells for nothing.
And a turn. You've wasted a turn and high level spell slots. Yeah.
It's almost better to have those ones that are like the 4th or 5th level spell slots, like a little bit down from what you can cast, that are gonna hit. And if they hit, they're gonna do damage. There's no like,
or even like your blights and your fireballs and your spells that like, they save, they succeed, but it does something. Like you've impacted the battle in a degree, whereas like it feels so bad to be like, I'm using this thing that I only get to use once per day. It does nothing.
And importantly, once per day on one creature. Because if you cast Bane, it's on 3, or like Slow or Confusion, it's on an area. But you're really, quite literally, rolling the dice with something like Flesh to Stone, where it's save or suck is what.
Speaking of slow, that was a clutch cast on our little pet boy.
We love Clack.
We do love Clack.
Absolutely huge, yeah.
I try to be very sparing when we involve Clack, but we were in TPK country.
Yeah.
Let's see it, son.
I do. It is funny because that is sort of like a weird, almost mechanic of the Blackwater thing, is that you guys can call on Tim to use Clack, but like you try not to abuse it, and he doesn't offer it. Like, you know what I mean? Like he'll throw it in if he's like, oh shit, I'm gonna kill these guys. He'll be like, okay, Clack will do something, or he'll wait for you to be like, hey, Clack. But like he won't just voluntarily involve Clack in the combat, which I think is kind of this great like little Deus Ex Machina almost, where he's like, there is one way that he can help you.
It's just like a little bit of cushion.
Yeah, just like a little assist when you need it. And it doesn't, and because of the way he's given Clack essentially like a weapon that's randomized, it's not a guaranteed help. Like it will do something, but it might not do something that's very useful.
When he rolled the 1, I was like, that is going to blow up the giant. That's going to blow up me. That's going to blow up. I'm next to Neppy, who
I
has
was
10
waiting
hit
for the
points.
staff to blow up. I was like, oh, is this like a self-destruct?
when he was like, the energy starts building, and I was like, oh, for fuck's sake, we're going to lose
staff is
Clack.
going to break, and Clack is going to die.
Yeah.
Which would
Clack
then
like,
disrupt the casting of the house.
Oh, yeah.
Because he was next to Yana.
And Clack
Also,
was at like 12, hit like 17 maybe. Like,
can we just is Yana starting to feel our boy Clack a little bit? I'm just saying. We know where Clack stands, but
that was a cute moment. That was very cute.
She's sending him some mixed messages there.
I was like, okay, that's they're just gonna be friends. That's the end of that. But I was like, oh, going over the spell book. Not a lot of people get to see the spell book.
No. And then when who was it came over? Callie came over to talk to her. I had imagined they had it set out on the table. And then Jen was like, yeah, it's spread across our laps. And I was like, so they're sitting next to each other and the book is like one half's open on her lap and one half's open on Clack's. So I was like, that's pretty intimate. I mean, there's a table right there.
I really like that, like last chatwater, we like on the spot decided what mine looks like, and it's the exact same aesthetic as Yana. Like we're just two people who like stuff loose leaf into a binder and forget about it.
It's not really surprising if you know the characters.
Which I want to say, because like as someone who did that in high school, anyone who also did that, I could never read their notes. I needed like neat, orderly notes. So it explains the reason why you can't use each other's spell books to learn spells is because you're like, what the fuck is this? Like, it's an RP reason why we mechanically don't do a thing. It's like, oh, I can't read that. I'm not gonna even try. Like,
we don't share spells, we don't drink health potions, and we don't abuse Clack. That's Blackwater. We keep it balanced. Yeah. Just cause. But speaking of balanced, should we touch about some of the fun balancing that they've dropped in this?
Well, first let's roll the intro.
Oh yes, of course. True. We did talk at length about
this. This is what we do at Chatwater. This is
what we do. We get to the intro when we get to it.
Hell yeah!
All right,
okay, let's do it.
Roll that intro.
Roll that intro. And we're back. Okay. Hello. Welcome back. So this is
it's a good intro.
Usually we have M. Usually M
does the announcements.
So today we have me, and I'm gonna do my
level
level
we're gonna get.
So we got a lot of things. We got a lot of information. Let's get into it. First off, thank you to our sponsors, Legendcraft. I know what Legend. Oh, they have a Kickstarter. Oh my god. Oh yeah. So Legendcraft, they've got the Magnet Tracker Kickstarter that launches on December the 1st. You got anything going on this December? Probably not. Go check out this Kickstarter. See some stuff that tracks with magnets. Magnets are dope. We all like that.
They work.
Yeah. You can use !Legendcraft in the chat, and they'll take you to it. They'll see what they're about. Silver Wing Armory. They do the paper stuff. Really good paper products. If you purchase anything from them, you get a discount. 5 do Blackwater. Fuck your script. All right, look. Silver Ring Army does paper stuff. If you like paper, if you like the written word, if you're a big fan of literacy, and
literate.
Yeah, if you're literate and you like to write your own words, put it in there. 10% off at the store when you type in Blackwater in the code. We love Tiana. She's our art person. She did this art. Look at that. Look where that art is. That's all her work. Fairy Dragon Dice, our dice master. Big fan. Love that. Wednesday. Hey Adam, what are you doing Wednesday, we are running a one-shot for our monthly one-shot, and it will be titled Ranger Danger. I'm very excited about it. I'll be GMing for it. We'll be joined by the awesome Brenna Folger from We to D&D. It's very, very exciting. Please come on by and check it out. It's going to be a really fun little one-shot about only Rangers. Just Rangers.
We're celebrating what previously was seen as the worst class in D&D, but might not be anymore because of something we'll talk about in a bit.
But are they going to be in danger?
Constantly, or maybe they will be danger.
Are the danger?
I've yet to make my mind up on that front. Yeah.
Thursday, we are premiering a mini campaign. I'm DMing. We're working with Onyx Path in the Scarred Land setting to celebrate, explore the frost wilds of Fenric. So if you ever wondered what I am like in the DM chair, wonder for 3 more days, because Thursday I get to do that.
Right. I was like, that's not the right math, but then I realized.
That's right. I'm fucking in 4 parallel dimensions.
Flex the brain.
Flex the brain. I'm gonna get
fucking playing 4D chess over here
across my temple. Yeah, that's gonna be myself, M, Len, Jen, and Matt to mix up the rhyming scheme. And finally, we got fucking merch. We have
merch.
That stands for merchandise. You want t-shirts. You want baby t-shirts. You want
hoodies,
tote bags,
sweatshirts,
hoodie.
Phone cases,
stickers. Damn it.
Different t-shirts with different patterns on them.
Literally, Sean Deppner. If you want him, he's in the store.
Fanny pack. I'm hidden in the fanny pack.
In the fanny pack.
Open it up.
Wait, do we have fanny packs?
Fanny pack. Yeah,
we got fanny packs.
That's
bro.
news
I'm only
to
in
me.
one of the fanny packs. I'm the golden ticket. This is Charlie Chaplin.
Rather than you getting to go to Willy Wonka, Willy Wonka comes to you.
You open the fanny pack, I come out, and you get my very meager estate. I still have roommates. I live with Adam, but you get that.
Oh my god!
And then, of course, fucking Saturday we play the game. You know that.
Oh,
man. If you don't know that we play Saturday, like, how did you find out?
How did you get here? Yeah.
Anyways, that's enough.
But Saturday we are joined by a wonderful guest, Crystal from Fable 2.
Chris is still happening. But that's all the announcements, the real announcements that we're here to talk about. Adam, I think you've got the book in front of you. Show us that beautiful book. Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. It
really is a cauldron of everything.
This dropped this past week, and let's talk about it.
Let's please.
So just like off the top, this introduced some really cool like addressing of like some issues on like a very like broad scale. Every single class gets updates and new subclasses. They introduced a class, the Artificer. They introduced a section at the end just for puzzles. Like,
yes, I saw that.
So you're like, oh, I'm a DM. I can't do puzzles. Sean Deppner is bad at puzzles. They're like, have some. I have run into trouble. Like, do I want to read these puzzles? Because then if another DM uses these puzzles, I'll know the secret and it'll ruin it for me. But what are you gonna do about that? Like, I'm mad they gave us puzzles, but I'm mad they don't give us puzzles. But yeah, so it's new classes, new rule mix-ups, new subclasses, and puzzles and a whole bunch of cool stuff. New items, magical tattoos are introduced. I just want to say I'm a big fan of this book.
I've had the briefest chance to kind of look at it on my phone, which, as everyone knows, isn't the same as looking at the actual book, just because I was at work and like the Amazon didn't deliver it to me until yesterday. So it was 2 days ago. So I just like haven't had a chance to sit down with it. And I was just looking at the Ranger stuff as we talked about Ranger Danger. Holy shit. It's like a totally different class.
Tell us what's blowing your mind. All
of it, but the Deft Explorer is very, very cool.
What's Deft Explorer? Tell us about that.
Deft Explorer is you get 3 new abilities that kind of all wrap into one ability, and it replaces the natural Explorer features, which makes sense. At first level, you get Canny, which essentially just gives you expertise, double proficiency on a skill, which is fucking awesome. Because if your ranger is like mediocre at survival, that doesn't make a lot of sense. So like you can make them really dope at stealth, really good at survival. Like I think that's really cool. But it's the 6th level one that blew me away. Is roving. Your walking speed increases by 5, and you gain a climbing and swimming speed equal to your walking speed. So all of a sudden you're just like good at like moving. It's like put it on a wood elf, because that's your archetypical ranger wood elf. That's a 40-foot movement speed, 40-foot swim, climb. That's brilliant. And then tireless at 10th level, you can just give yourself temporary hit points. 1d8 plus your wisdom modifier. And it scales with, which I love about this book, your proficiency bonus. And I think that's one of the cooler things about this book is a lot of abilities scale with proficiency bonus, which makes multiclassing like a little more seamless. Like
Because traditionally, if you would, wizards, for example, gain access to a certain amount of spells or abilities based off of their intelligence modifier because they're intelligence-based class. Now, if you, were to multi-class into wizard, but you're not that smart, then you're only going to have a +2. But everybody, regardless of your class, gains a proficiency bonus just relative to their overall level. So it's not, if you're level 20 paladin and you've got 20 levels of paladin, you have the same proficiency bonus as someone who's got 5 levels of fighter, sorcerer, bard, rogue. Like, you all have a +6. And so it keeps the scaling much more even across the board.
But what it also solves is off the top. No, not off the top, but pretty quickly into Finnan's growth, he had 20 charisma. And that's as far as he can go from there. That's 20 charisma. So all my stuff that stacks off charisma, I know that I no longer get more of that. That is that forever. Whereas scaling off proficiency bonus, you're in 2 more levels, I get 1 more thing. In 2 more levels after that, I get 1 more thing. Or 4 more levels after that, I get 1 more thing. It's the scaling is far more gradual rather than being at level 4, you have 20 in your ability and that's the last thing you grow. You stop growing at level 4 for certain things. It feels quite
something to look forward to now.
I think that they realized, and I haven't been playing D&D for that long. I started in 5th edition, but I feel like they've realized that people really like to multi-class. And they're trying to make it a little bit more structured where it makes a bit more sense mechanically, because sometimes it would get a little crazy when you mash certain things together. But B, it also it kind of almost encourages it, because you're not being penalized anymore, or not being penalized as much for multi-classing. Whereas before, sometimes you would lose out on things, or it wouldn't work quite as well. But I think they realize that people like to multi-class, and multi-classing feels like a very human thing, right? You feel the need that's required based on the party or based on your character's interaction with things. People grow, and they don't always grow in a singular path.
It's funny you talk about only playing 5e, because I've played 4e, I've played 3.5, I've played Pathfinder, and when 5e came out, I loved it because they simplified it. It was a game that pretty much everyone could pick up, but some of my friends who really thrived in 3.5 and Pathfinder chafed under the lack of options. And so this feels okay, we released the player's handbook. If you just want to play, here's the very straightforward, easy to pick up. And now they have this where it's but you missed multi-classing. Well, now we're going to let you tweak. And we're also going to introduce the Artificer class, which is so
good.
Book keep heavy. You get to have magic items. You get to make them yourself. You get to customize them. There's so many layers to it. And so it really does feel where I think it's sort of an olive branch to a sort of an earlier style of D&D and older fans that simultaneously is, if you've been introduced to it and you're I never got into D&D because it was too complicated, I got in at the simpler stuff, and now I'm ready to evolve
what I love about it is that it hasn't made it complicated from the get-go. And that's one thing I see a lot of people, there are people out there who it rubs them the wrong way that there are now so many source books, and they're oh, this is another 5e was supposed to simplify everything, and now it feels like we're back in the Pathfinder world. What I love is it's still it doesn't change the game. It just gives you more options. It doesn't.
You don't need to use the source
you don't
books,
need to use it doesn't make it it doesn't negate anything from before. It only adds. So
whereas I think about Pathfinder, and you got a feat every odd numbered level, so 1, 3, 5, 7, etc. And then if you were a fighter, you got a feat every even level, and so you got a feat every level, and there are so many feats, and there's feat trees and feat chains and feat like prerequisites, and it's just like this is the Pathfinder app. I don't know if it's, but this is all feats. This is all just feats, and I'm still in B. I'm like, it's all feats. It's like I think there's like 500 feats. And it's so hard to be like, all right, I want to make this character. It's cool when you're like, I want to do this very specific thing. Like I had a character who was all about like hitting people and teleporting around the battlefield. That was great. I knew exactly what my tree was. But if you're coming into the game new and you're like, oh, I get to pick a feat, and you look at it and you're like, what? Because like D&D, you have.
I mean, importantly, there are now more feats. But what you're saying, Yanis, is like, you don't need it. Like they're talking about, they have all these extra splats, but it's like, but the player's handbook still stands. You can still just make a druid of the land.
Yeah.
And like, you won't be missing anything.
And there's maybe like 20 feats, and you can take an ability increase instead. Like that's the thing, is like, rather than taking a feat, you can just be better at something.
I do want to talk about these feats just a little bit, because I have had some things that I've wanted to see from D&D for a long time, and one of them was a non-monk unarmed person.
100%.
And I was like, I think it should be a subclass of barbarian, and they just introduced a feat called, no, it's not even
a fighting style. It's a fighting
style, which is something that paladins can get, fighters get, but also they've introduced a feat where you can get a fighting style. So effectively, everyone has access to this, and it just means that when you're fighting unarmed, your unarmed strikes become a 1d6, and if you're not holding any weapons, they become a 1d8. So that effectively means, if it's still not as good as a weapon, as fists probably shouldn't be, but like before this, all you had was Tavern Brawler, which was like a 1d4, which is just, it doesn't pack the punch that you want. And so now, theoretically, anyone could be a punchy.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
so walk me through how you get there. So you would take the fighting initiate feat.
Yep.
And then it would allow you to learn one fighting style.
Yeah. And then you take the unarmed fighting from the fighters. Then you would take the
unarmed fighter from the fighters.
I believe only the fighters can take it from level up. I think Paladin doesn't have access to it in their like level thing. But yeah, you just take the feat.
So yeah, level 4, or if you're human, from level 1. I mean, now we can talk about character creation, which is the really interesting thing. But just, we'll get to that, chatWater, we'll get there. But yeah, you know, with your first feat, and a lot of DMs just allow their players to have a feat off the go, because it makes your character, you know, more personal. You can just be a pugilist, and
that's something that they actually did, which I think if you have the book, page 46 to 47, you often hear people being like, I don't really want to play a fighter, they're really bland, they're really straightforward, but like this is so good, where it's like, build a battle master and build them however you want. You can be a lancer, you can be a hoplite, you can be a brawler, you can be a bodyguard. Like there's so many different styles of battle master that you can be so varied and different, and they've like laid it out for you.
Let me hop in here, because
please.
What when we're talking about, there's too much stuff, it feels like they've sort of addressed that concern before. So originally there's this class called Battle Master, which is arguably the most interesting but also most involved fighter class, where you could choose between a whole list of abilities that could, you know, make you hit harder, more accurate, do all kinds of fun things, trip up an enemy, disarm them, but you got to pick from a certain list, and you had them, and like it was like quite an extensive list, and they've added more maneuvers that you can do, but they've also added basically a list of archetypes, where it's like, do you want to be like, one of them is like a shock trooper, and it doesn't give you any stat bonuses. They're like a little bit of fluff of like, this is what like this kind of rowdy boy would feel like, and they have the list of the maneuvers you could take to feel that way. Yeah.
Subtlety is not your style. This is shock trooper. You're trained to get straight into the fighting, busting through enemy lines and applying tremendous pressure quickly. Those who ignore you in combat do so at their peril, and it suggests you take the fighting style of great weapon fighting. You take the maneuvers menacing attack, pushing attack, and sweeping attack, and you take the feats charger, great weapon master, heavy armor master, and it just like lays it out for you. There's a character, go play it. And the thing is, if you're like, I don't want a big weapon, you can change that to fucking unarmed fighting, and now you're a shock puncher. Now you're just like in there being like, motherfucker, get down, like you can mix it up. That's the best part. Is it's mix and match. It's awesome. It's so good.
talk about mix and match, because this is something that, Adam, you haven't actually read this chapter yet, and so I'm excited to tell you. Yeah,
and this is, I think what I love about this is I think part of their Wizards of the Coast response to not wanting to pigeonhole people based on race and, you know, class and that kind of thing. Essentially what they're trying to do is say, like, and it's something that I think everyone sort of rubbed against at some point, where you want to play an elf, but you don't want to play an elf who's an elf. You know what I mean? You want to play the classic is Mr. Up here, Hard One Surefoot, who, you know, he's a human, but he was raised by a dwarf.
Yeah.
And like, it's the perfect, this was pre that, and they kind of homebrewed it. So he had a lot of like the dwarf features, even though he was a human. And I love that they've now made that something that's mechanically sound and mechanically doable.
So what they've done in the mechanics, in that spirit.
Character options, chapter 1 start thing, just so I can read along while you guys talk about it.
It's like the first thing is, traditionally, say when you played an elf, the elf would get, I believe it's a +2 in dexterity and a +1 in wisdom, intelligence, or charisma, depending on wood elf, high elf, dark elf. What they've done is they've said that is based on like traditional elf culture.
Standard elf.
But you're an adventurer, so you can be whatever. So now you can just take that +2 in dex and that +1 in wisdom or whatever and put it anywhere you want. Because you're an adventurer, you're a hero, so your elf could have a +2 in strength because it's a burly elf, and a +1 in, I don't know, fucking constitution, because you have the biggest, strongest elf in town. And in addition, you know, they get proficiency in long swords and whatever. Now you can change that to, I don't know, smith's tools. Basically, everything that you get, you can customize it. So when they offer you, orcs are strength and constitution with, you know, intimidation, all of those you can just have. Or if you want to make your orc who, you know, swims upstream, as it were, you can change that. And so this, I think, is probably the most meaningful change in the whole book.
I agree.
Because it really does open it up to be whatever you want.
Essentially what it's saying is the idea of race in D&D is an aesthetic. Because it's no longer placing an expectation or a role on you based on your race. It's essentially saying, like, you can be whatever you want to be, and then the race is just how you look, or part of your backstory. It doesn't affect your ability, which I think is awesome.
I think it's going to lead to some really cool, because, like, you're right. Like, you pick a race and you're like, well, these are kind of my class choices. Or you want a class and you're like, I can only really play these races because, or human. But a dwarf wizard is now fully optional. Like, it opens the door to things that you might not see. For example, like a Minotaur wizard is fucking awesome, and it's just such a good aesthetic choice.
It is the essence of this. It's allowing us to make the mechanics match our narrative. In a much more meaningful way from the get-go.
I will say, I love this. I think it makes it especially good for people just joining the game, where it's like, oh, you want to be an elf fighter, or like,
barbarian,
an elf, you want to be an elf arm wrestler. Well, that doesn't really line up, but I guess we can make that work, because people who start the game, they don't know what they, you know, should or shouldn't do, right? The one thing where I'm like, oh, that's a bit of a shame, is what I found in like people who've been playing a while. They really love to make really dumb things that shouldn't work, and there is such a level
Sean,
of
you say that it's you and Adam that are those people.
Locks it on rogue.
Sorry, let me just tell you about it. I am those people. I'm playing a Minotaur wizard. Of course I'm that person. There is such a level of satisfaction of building something that
shouldn't work,
mechanically flawed, mechanically suboptimal, and just like committing so hard and sort of like making it work through sheer will and role play that like, you know, I guess it's kind of like an extra bonus or whatever. It's it's the kind of thing that without the strict, limits of the previous race system, the outdated race system, you're just not going to have like, oh, my hands are really tied, and so I'm my Minotaur wizard. I'm being a rebel by making it. Like, you'll just be able to make a good Minotaur wizard.
You know what you're saying right now is
what?
Like back in the 40s and the 50s. Cycling is my background. Back in the 40s and 50s, all the cyclists used to smoke, and then at one point they stopped smoking and they started racing really fast, and then everyone was like, well, shit, we're gonna have to stop smoking. You're that cyclist who's like smoking and being like, it's too easy not to quit smoking. I like it when it was harder, when I couldn't breathe.
Challenge.
I am the guy who's like, never have an easy mode on Dark Souls.
You're like, that football player. You're the football player who, when they're like, you need to start wearing helmets, you're like, it's too easy with helmets.
Yeah.
But
then exactly how do I get concussed?
Look, I am 100% pro this move, but just all that I'm saying is that it does lose a certain element of.
But you could make it more
cancer.
crunchy in a different way. Like, you could purposely stack it the wrong way.
Oh, it's not the same. If you
the spirit of it is different.
Yanis, if you like fucking shoot yourself in the foot, no. But if you're playing a class that is initially shot in the foot, then you're like, oh, I'm doing this in spite of this.
Again, this is an optional thing. So if you want to play a Minotaur who is like your stereotypical Minotaur that uses the stats that Minotaurs use, you can still do that. It's not like you have to change around. I love the combination because I've always wanted to play a rogue who hits people with a big weapon, because like that's funny to me. Like a dude with a warhammer that's just like donk on the back of the head. So the rogue subclass, the soul knife, it doesn't really specify. It says it's finessed, but it doesn't specify what it is. It just says, it does say psychic blade, which is a bit of a bummer. But I think you can like talk to your TM. I want a Loxodon, big elephant man, two-handed hammer that he's manifested with his brain powers that just fucking clubs people over the head.
What? It's funny that you mentioned that, because there's a small chapter right at the end where they talk about customizing your spells. And so this, I haven't thoroughly gone through it, but it's not any mechanical way, but basically they just talk about something we've talked about on this show and on Behind the Screen, where they're just like, the way we describe the spells are like just the OG, but like you can make it however you want. And they have this beautiful bit of art where it's like this farmer wizard casting magic missile, and his magic missiles are chickens. Like,
it's so good. The art in this game is beyond good.
It's just so wonderful to see them commit to paper the things that like so many of us have just been like doing this whole time, and just to say that, yes, like, buy the book. This is literally the book. Buy the book. You get to make it whatever the fuck you want.
It's what they're doing is they're canonizing the rule of cool.
Yes.
They're saying, you know what? As long as it works, as long as you're the mechanics are sound, it can look however the fuck you want. And that's cool, because as long as, a lot of people have been doing that anyways, and it's nice to know that is.
Look at that.
So good.
So that is a farmer wizard shooting magic missile at a knoll with chicken magic missiles. Yeah. Doesn't change anything mechanically about the spell, but that's fucking awesome.
Like, that's
it's like Jester with her hamster unicorns.
Yeah,
exactly.
And I do like it's not customizing your spells, it's personalizing your spells.
Because it doesn't change the spell.
No.
It's just putting your stank on it.
Yeah, got to put your stank on it. I mean, and one of the cool things too, another thing that they've sort of canonized that is something that has just been good practice. They talk about in like the DM section, which I love, they talk about establishing boundaries and like soft boundaries and hard boundaries, and just like, again, canonizing it, where it's like, when you're DMing at the start, you should talk about this. They talk about session zeros, and like, it's really gratifying. Yeah, like you said, to just see it canonized, see it recognized, to see the good practice just put in the book. You go ahead.
I've always thought that like Wizards of the Coast are great because they do everyone acknowledges, and we've talked a lot about it, that part of what makes D&D so awesome is the community. And it's nice to see that kind of does almost start at the top with Wizards, in terms that like they listen to their community. Like they see what the community is doing, and they either like, and they kind of like they kind of steer it in the direction where people are already taking it. They see what's happening and they're like, oh, you know what, that is cool. They don't try and hedge people in. I mean, they could very easily have put it out and been like, this is now not officially a rule. You know what I mean? They could very much have like tightened the rules, because a lot of these rules, they are adding, like they're adding features and they're adding more material, but it's stuff that frees you. You know what I mean? It's stuff that allows you to do more. Like it opens the world rather than bogs it down with mechanics.
And you say they could have tightened it down. The much simpler thing that they could have done is just not addressed it.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things they just put in prosthetic limb. It's just a limb that you can put on and it works like your fucking limb. And like yeah, that's great. And it doesn't shoot fire or anything. It's just a functioning limb.
Normal arm.
Because fucking not everybody has all of those.
Yeah.
And yeah, like to go out of their way and put it into print and spend like 2 or 3 of their pages, like, and that costs them money. Like every page costs that, because there's assets and like it has to be vetted, just to go out of their way to say, this is how D&D should be played.
Thank you. Super cool.
You guys are getting to see me react to a lot of this stuff in real time. I'm just kind of like flipping through and like getting excited.
This is a rare occasion where Sean is the expert. Sean is M. Even though we said Adam is M, but Sean is M. And
I saw this art.
I saw this
art. And I was like, oh, this is cool. It is letters. It's very, it's called Tasha's Mind Whip. You psychically lash out at one creature you can see. They make a save, an intelligence save. They take damage, and then they can't take a reaction until the end of its next turn. But the important part of the spell is on its next turn, it has to choose whether it gets a move, action, or bonus action. It can only take one of those. So it's like mega slow for one turn and it damages them. It's wild, dude. And then as you upcast it, you can target more creatures. It's really, really wild.
What level is that?
It's a 2nd level enchantment.
Ooh, letters might want to get in on that. That feels very
It's a wizard spell. It's a wizard spell. And the other thing that I'm like, nothing in this book makes me go, oh, that's fucked. Like people are going to abuse stuff regardless of if it's balanced or not. But the one thing I'm like, is the Metamagic adept. That scares me a little bit. Just people being able to be like, you just get Metamagic from the sorcerer class. It's a feat that you can take. Any class can take.
Oh, yeah. They've introduced, like we didn't even talk about the feats. They've introduced feats where you can get Eldritch Invocations that Warlocks have, and you can get sorcery points. You could always get maneuver stuff, but like, is there other stuff that you can get?
The Eldritch Invocation also worries me a bit, because there are some Eldritch Invocations that are great for Warlocks, because it's like you get to cast this without using a spell slot. It does also solve the problem that I've always wanted to make an illusionist, and like arguably disguise self or silent image at will is just such a strong choice for an illusionist, and that like really opens that up for a wizard to do that now, and that's fun. You don't have to dip into Warlock. But Metamagic Adept, like the idea of people being able to like quick casts, high level cleric spells.
For those who don't know about Metamagic, tell us about why this worries you.
So Metamagic is a feature for the sorcerer class where they can spend sorcery points, which from the feat you only get two. You only get two. So it's not
pretty
crazy. It does limit you a bit.
You basically only get to do one Metamagic. Like you only get 2 options of the Metamagic, whereas I think like higher level sorcerers get 3 or 4.
Yeah.
And you only get 2 Metamagic points. So you can essentially only use it once per, I think it's long rest. Yeah, long rest.
Long rest, yeah. So it's not crazy, but there are some Metamagic features. Like you get to choose, similar to the Maneuver Master, you get to choose kind of like your type. There's one that's twinned.
Yeah,
which you can
big ones are twinned and quickened.
Twinned is if a spell targets only one creature, you can have it target 2 creatures, and quickened is if is an action, you make it a bonus action. And you can't use a Metamagic feature on more than one Metamagic feature on a singular spell. But the idea of I'm thinking more the martial casters. That's where I get a little worried, is because getting a quicken spell, you can Ice Bayonet as an action to cast. As a fighter, you can bonus action Ice Bayonet and action surge and take 6 attacks with an Ice Bayonet. And that's well,
see, that's not too bad.
That's some OG Kale shit.
It's not. Yeah, that's the thing, is it really basically creates that paladin sorcerer mix around where it's ooh, that's a little spicy.
But what I like about that is much like adrenaline burst or whatever it's called. You get it. Yeah, you really only get it once. One thing.
Yeah. Action surge.
Essentially, the new feats, what they've done is they've taken the fun little bits from all of the other classes and made them available to the other classes.
Limitedly available.
Yeah. So what they've done is they said everyone likes to multi-class. Now we're encouraging you to multi-class, but also you don't have to commit to a full multi-class. You can do a half. You can be 3 levels of paladin and then a quarter level sorcerer. You don't have to go full sorcerer. You can just do this a little bit, which I think is cool too, because yet again, we talk about the narrative and the mechanics. If you are a caster and you narratively spend time with a sorcerer, there's no reason that they couldn't teach you something about magic that you're not necessarily going to be as good at, but that you can be oh, I get it. I see how you're doing this. Yeah. And then you can work to achieve it.
Yeah, that'd be great. It could be because, 2 levels, we get a feat. So, 9 months down the road when we get to that point,
if not more.
6 years when we finally get to level 16. Finnan could teach Neppy disguise self at will.
A thing that makes her stealthier.
Or fucking he could teach Kokanee his super dark vision.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be a beautiful thing?
Yeah, Devil's Sight. That is an invocation. Yeah, that is kind of wild. I could help it. Yeah, that's crazy.
There's one called Skill Expert, which is the same with
Prodigy from the human feed.
Which is Kokanee asked Limerick to teach him how to pick locks.
Yeah.
And that is something that he could take.
Wasn't that me?
Or you.
That was me.
You asked Limerick to teach you how to pick locks. So that is something you could take. You could take Skill Expert, which then gives you proficiency in a skill of your choice. And you choose one skill which you have proficiency, you gain expertise with that skill. So you could essentially become proficient in what is it, sleight of hand
tools.
Thieves tools.
Thieves tools. So you could make a warlock who can pick locks.
Mm-hmm.
Or make a warlock that has a kind of a roguey feel.
Because that is what Finnan is he's a rogue that is actually a warlock by accident.
A roguelock.
A roguelock. I want to speak on one of the feats as we're talking about feats, because there are awesome feats. They are very, very a lot of the feats are quite crunchy, where it's get features from other classes. That's really cool. There's a couple telepathic or telekinetic. You get to be telepathic or telekinetic. But the one that stands out to me the most, it has mechanical implications.
Oh,
but
I know which one you're going to say.
Chef.
Yeah.
You can take a feat that makes you really good at cooking.
Yeah.
You increase your constitution or your wisdom, which is hilarious because you've been trying your own food and your constitution goes up because you keep poisoning yourself.
Yeah.
You get proficiency in cooked utensils if you don't already have it. And then as part of a short rest, you can cook special food. You can feed up to 4 creatures plus your proficiency bonus. And then at the end of the short rest, they get if they spent hit dice, they get an extra 1d8 hit points. Not temporary, they just get an extra 1d8 hit points. And then with an hour of work, you can cook a number of treats, and the treats give you temporary hit points equal to your proficiency bonus. It's mechanically, it has some mechanics to be oh, you maybe should take this. but it's just so flavorful of being like, hey guys, I'm the cook of the party. Like,
I mean,
it's so good.
This reminds me of my favorite feat, which is like Field Medic or whatever that one's called, where it was like the feat from the first book where you could like expend an action from a herbalism kit and like just heal someone sans magic. Like you could just do it. And like these feats, you're right, that aren't super, there's no way you can like power game that to be super powerful, but it just feels so good.
I've already come up with, sorry, Yanis, you go.
No, go. My favorite tattoo, because they now have magical tattoos.
Which we didn't even talk about the magical tattoos.
We'll get to it. We'll get there.
My favorite of the magical tattoos, let me just find it here, is one that's as well almost completely pointless at a higher level. Like it has some mechanical stuff, but it's called the Masquerade Tattoo. And you attune to it, and essentially what it does is it only gives you the ability to cast a disguise self at a DC of 13, which when you're a higher level is like basically pointless. But what it does is it has fluid ink. So as a bonus action, you can shape the tattoo in any color or pattern and move it to any area of your skin. Whatever form it takes, it's always obviously a tattoo. It can range in size from no smaller than a copper piece to an intricate work of art that covers all of your skin. So you could be like a super tatted guy and just have these tattoos, and like that's it. That's basically like that's basically the mechanic of the Masquerade Tattoo.
I want to say that like tattoos in themselves, you don't need to cast the disguise self, because you just like tattoo all up your face, and then you walk into a building, you walk out, you might physically look the same, but it's pretty hard. It's like a lot of times when you see someone with like extensive tattoos, the first thing you see is the tattoo.
Yeah.
And you don't clock other features. So if they came out and they like looked the same but no tattoos, you'd be like, that's a different person.
But what I love about it too is you can change the designs. Yeah. And also when you unattune, because how all the tattoos work in this is it's like essentially a tattoo needle. And when you attune the needle, you take on the attributes of the tattoo. And when you unattune the needle stays and the tattoo disappears. So it's like very non-committal in terms of like tattoo. It's like a big fake tattoo.
I will say retroactively, Torrin had this tattoo because he was full body tatted, and they changed a lot. So,
but yeah, like there are some of the tattoos that are more powerful. Like the spell rock tattoo is pretty powerful because you can basically like stash a spell in the tattoo. But like the Masquerade one, I just love because it's
really good.
It's kind of pointless, but I love the aesthetic of like you're literally giving up one of your attunement slots to just have a pretty tattoo.
To be rad as fuck. It does occur to me that one of the things that artificers get is they can attune to 6 slots at the top level.
It's like 20th level, I think.
You could play an artificer who's just all tats. It's just all tats. You don't have anything like magic equipment. You're just like a shirtless person showing off your rad snake tat and your like peacock, and all of them grant magic abilities. Like that's the kind of like dumb shit that I live for.
Yeah. I was speaking of artificer because I was going to say before we go into the magical tattoos, like back to the chef thing, I want to make an alchemist artificer who like actively makes poisons. He has the poisoner feat as well, because that's another feat they've introduced where you are good at making poisons, and he has the chef feat. So he's happily cooking in his party the whole time. It's just like, oh, fuck. Like, not that vial, that's not salt. Like, la la la.
Well, let's talk about the artificer, because this is
it's got my favorite one of all of them.
The only new class they've added, and importantly, now before we get to armor, it's rad. What I love about this is it's now it's one of 2 intelligence-based classes.
Yeah.
Before this, if you want to be intelligence-based, it was only wizard. Every other stat had at least 2 or more stats that were
fighter or rogue, but that's
no. That you'd never be intelligence first on one of those.
No. If you want to be straight caster,
One of the complaints about 5e was because only wizards are intelligence-based, it meant that like everything else is like charisma and dex. Is like everyone is super hot but dumb because everyone is all strength and dex and charisma and wisdom. And so to just have one other intelligence-based feat. It's my favorite stat. No surprise, I play a wizard. It's really cool to see that. And like we said, it's super sort of bookkeepy. And so to play it feels like you're intelligence-based because there is so much to keep track of.
I will also say, because it's a 1d8 hit die, so you get 8 hit die from the start, and you get light and medium armor. It's almost like what warlocks are to sorcerers, like artificer is to wizards. It's like, it's a similar thing where you like, rather than invocations, you have like tinkering stuff. It's an interesting parallel between like, you got your squishy sorcerer or you're like slightly tankier warlock. You got squishy intelligence boy, slightly. So
break it down for us, Adam. What is, give us the cliff notes. What makes an artificer an artificer?
Okay, so an artificer is all about, if you could guess, artificing.
Artificing.
What is that? I don't know that word.
Artificing is the creation of like gadgets, like making tools and like implements and stuff like that. You get a bunch of tool proficiencies. Like, I think you can get up to 6. So your dude can be really fucking good at making shit all of the time. They do item infusion, so they can make their own magical items as a part of their class. They make them, and that's really fucking cool. They just like work on projects and they make these really dope items.
And so, you're talking about warlocks. This is sort of the int-based warlock, whereas warlocks, they get invocations. There's this list of things that you can take to sort of customize your warlock. These infusions are the same thing, where there's a list of stuff that you can do, and you can apply them to armor.
You can make any magical item. There's one that's just like recreate magical item or something like that, where it's basically they'll give you a list of magical items you can make at that level, like a bag of holding, and you can just make a bag of holding. You can make a really nice sword, you can make armor, you can make boots, you can make I can't say the word cloak. The crazy thing is, talking about that spell storing tattoo, Giannis, at 11th level, artificers just get that for free. You can store a spell in an object. Whenever you finish a long rest, you can type one simple or martial weapon, or one item you can use as spellcasting focus, and you store a spell into it, choosing a first or second level spell from the artificer's spell list.
And importantly,
then you can just take an action and use that spell.
You, the artificer, don't have to use these items. You can give them to other people.
It's a very nice opportunity to be a very like support heavy class. Like you can make dope shit for other people.
You were saying that you compare it to sort of like a different version of a warlock, but to me the artificer feels very cleric-y. To me it feels like, because a cleric is kind of like your buffing healing class, and you can play it as a sort of like a damage heavy class, like some people aren't known to do, but it is sort of almost like a support class, and this feels to me very similar. Like you can play this as like heavy support. Like you can make items for people. If you take we will get there, but if you take like the armor artifice class, like you're kind of tanky almost as well. So to me it feels like a very like support based class in a way, but it is a very exciting class.
I do like the idea of a intelligence based caster that is like essentially a full caster. They get up to 5th level spells. So they are pretty equivalent to the warlock like progression of casting, but in heavy armor. Like the armorer, you can just be in full plate,
Adam,
punching the shit out of people.
Yeah, because it's the best.
I honestly think it's the best part of this book. The book is so good, but I read this and I was like, I have to play this at some point. It is, you have focused your artifice into making really, really good armor. So you make yourself a magical set of armor called arcane armor. If it normally has a strength requirement, it doesn't. So you don't have to be like, the thing is that the armor class allows you to be a like intelligent puncher. You don't have to use your strength at all, because you can use it as an arcane focus. The armor itself, it attaches to you and can't be removed against your will. It covers your whole body. You can retract and deploy the helmet as a bonus action,
So cool,
which is
so
just
cool,
a really
so cool.
lovely bit of ribbon, like just like fucking Iron Man style.
Tony Stark. We love it.
The armor replaces any missing limbs, so it itself is a prosthetic thing. It functions identically as that limb would thing. And the crazy part is you can don and doff, which means you can take on the armor and put on the take off the armor and put it back on as an action.
Yeah, it's you hit the little center, center button like Tony Stark, and it goes.
Yeah. Because like I think full plate takes 10 minutes to put
10
on.
minutes to put on, 5 to take off.
Yeah.
You know what would be amazing? Like we'll get through the rest, but just like as a pitch of a character, you could play someone who like was or is an artifice armorer, but like they've lost both their legs and their arms, so they're like in a wheelchair essentially. But when they doff their armor, they're like fully mobile again.
Yeah.
So like they're able to like do everything, but like they're not like the things you can play with it are just super cool.
You again, when you take this at 3rd level, you get to customize your arcane armor. You have 2 choices. There is the Guardian armor, which is all about being in the front line of conflict. Again, you're throwing hands. When you use the weapon attack that is associated with these armor types, you can use your intelligence instead of strength or dexterity as a part of the attack and damage rolls. So again, no reliance on strength to be a frontline combatant, which I fucking
you can be like
love.
A real nerd. You can be like a real scrawny, smart boy who gets in his tank armor and goes and bashes things.
The Guardian gives you 2 things. Thunder Gauntlets, which is fucking sick. Just like
they do exactly what you think. You punch and it hurts.
They're melee weapons, 1d8 on a hit, and then if they're hit by this cool thing about this is it's like they're adding actual elements of like you play World of Warcraft and there's tank class, and part of tank class is like pulling aggro, making sure that things attack you. And that doesn't really exist in D&D as much. There's some fighter features and some stuff like that. But Thunder Gauntlets, a creature hit by your gauntlets, has disadvantage on attack rolls against any creatures other than yourself. So you keep punching things, they keep trying to hit you. So you can really fucking bog down fights. And then Defensive Field, as a bonus action, you gain temporary hit points, that replacing any that you already have. And you can use this bonus action up to your proficiency bonus, and you regain all uses on a long rest. So you can be in the fight, and every round for 2 to 6 rounds, depending on your level, you can just be like kind of a little bit healing yourself or creating a buffer to stay in the front line. And then the second one, which again, you don't have to permanently choose these armors you can change.
You can switch on
a
short rest.
Yeah, you can switch on a short rest. You can change what your armor does. Infiltrator, which is exactly how it sounds. It has a lightning launcher that just shoots lightning at people. It's sick. Your walking speed increases by 5, and you have advantage on dexterity stealth checks. And if your armor would normally impose disadvantage, it cancels out. So if you're in heavy plate, you don't have disadvantage on sneaking attack.
If you're an armorer class, you don't need to be in heavy plate.
No.
You
can be in light armor if you wanted.
You can be in light armor, yeah. Yeah.
Like, because you're proficient in medium and heavy if you take armor.
You start with artificers all start with light, medium, and shields. Getting armor, you get heavy, and I think also battlesmith also gets heavy. 5th level, you get an extra attack. So if you're punching with your punch gauntlets, you're punching more. It's just and then the perfected armor, like you can pull things to you. It
just gets bigger and better. And so what's really cool about that is like just the fact that there's like 2 modes that you don't have to choose necessarily. It's like, oh, do we think because you know if you're gonna go to sneak in, or it's like just asking around the campfire, like, guys, are we going in quiet or are we going in loud? I have to know. Yeah. So I can get ready my thunder gauntlets.
The big one though is the 9th level feature of the armorer subclass, in that we were talking about artificer infusions. You can make like special gauntlets, you can make special helmets, you can make special armor. Every separate piece of your full body armor can now count at 9th level, can now count as an individual item for enchantment. So in your full set armor, Your hand piece can be ogre strength gauntlets. Your chest piece can be a +1 armor. Your legs can be like, it's insane.
It's
you get to just
super stackable.
And then also the maximum amount of items that you're allowed to infuse and be like enchanted increases by 2, but those 2 have to be used on your arcane armor. But it means you can enchant more shit and make yourself more badass and just be in the middle of combat.
How long do those enchantments last for?
Forever. They're items.
Until
they become
you
items.
die.
Yeah, they become magic. No, they're magical items. You've made magical items.
I mean, is your arcane armor? I don't think someone else can wear it.
No. I think it might actually be until you die, because I think the infusion you have to like think about them or something.
Infusions, they last a certain number of days after you die.
If you have like a week, you could go through and essentially make every piece do a different thing, and it would last forever.
As long as you're alive, yeah.
Just stacking those mods.
When you die, the infusion vanishes after a number of days equal to your intelligence modifier. Yeah. So, I mean, that's the best thing is if you die, your party has 5 days to use your shit to bring you back.
I love that. I love that it doesn't just disappear, because even right there in the mechanics, they've built in the quest to get you back. We might have hated Gregory the armor guy, but we love these boots he made for me.
We got to get him back. I also really I just like all of the subclasses feel so unique. You've got the alchemist. It's all about like support, like Yanis is talking about healing and potions. And you've got your fucking armorer who's just like, there is the infiltrator option. And that is I feel like the infiltrator option is a good, like, I am the tank. It's like Neppy with her conversation last night. It's like, am I liability because I am loud? This is that, like, I am the tank frontliner, but if I need to be, I can be quiet. Because I don't think you're going into combat using your, or at least neutral, yeah. I don't think you're going into combat using your non-thunder gauntlets, because that's fucking so
you're
scary.
not, Adam. D&D's for everybody. People are like, oh, I can be a sneaky caster from the back. Like, that's the cool thing. It's like
multi-class with rogue.
Yeah, if you want to be more of like a roguey caster, that's your thing.
But then there's also like the artillerist who makes like cannons, which are fucking awesome. You've got your battlesmith that makes like a pet made of like a metal pet, which is really, really cool.
Who I don't think we've met them on the stream, but what was Matt's character who played?
Oh, we've met that character.
Lex.
Yeah, we've met the character played by Tim. I don't think.
But yeah, before the stream started,
pre-stream,
while now there's a proper episode of chatWater. While Matt was dead,
Kokanee was dead.
Yeah, Kokanee was dead, and what's her name? Arathis was putting his skin tightly stretched over a robot. Matt was playing as Lex, the artificer, because this has been in Unearthed Arcana
for a while.
Quite a while.
It was in Eberron. So Rise from the Ashes of Eberron. It was a setting book, and they released it as a class. So it's always been like an official class. But this is kind of like a lot of DMs will be like, it's not an official handbook yet though.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is basically just being like, this class has existed. The armorer class is new. It's like brand new. It was in UA for a while, but like for this book, it's brand new. But they're like artillerists and all that stuff. They were in Eberron.
Well, speaking of DMs,
also I just want to because we've talked about these fucking armorers. Look at that fucking art. Oh, there's the stealthy boy and there's the punch man.
Speaking of stuff DMs allow, something we were talking about when we had the Wagadu Chronicle episode. One of the things that I was so impressed about with the Wagadu Chronicle was the fact that mechanically built in, they have non-violent means of encounters. If you're coming across baddies, they had the appeasement system. That's the term they use. And it basically was like built into every encounter, you'd have your monster, and this is the way you could deal with it that is non-combat. They have a whole section at the end that's just called parlaying with monsters. And so it's not as in-depth as every creature getting their own individual thing that they're interested in, but they break it down by class. So it'll be like if you're fighting giants and you want to talk to them, and they give you a list of things that giants might be interested in that you as a party, and they even have a stat block where it's like, if you are clever in, I think it's for giants, it's survival. Like, so Callie, who's good at survival, could be like, I roll a survival check. I know something about giants. I know that they might want food or, you know, a trophy from a rival giant's clan. But Yana, who's really smart at, say, Arcana, might know a bunch about aberrants or, you know, mind flayers. And she'll be like, oh, we're going up against mind flayers, but we don't want to fight them. You know, they might want this, this, this. And so it's really cool. Again, just adding options for DMs. It's like not every, if your players don't want everything to be a fight, it's not just on you, the DM, to figure that out. Now you can like, here you go. You know, here's basically the conversation starter. I'd love for them to go deeper into this system, you know, on their next splat, but I think this is a really cool thing that they've introduced that I didn't even know I needed. End scene.
Speaking of other new things, the monk has a new subclass, the Way of Mercy, and it's kind of like a cleric monk, which is super, super cool, allowing you to do some healing.
I think this subclass is the only gripe that I have with this book, and it's just a misname. They misnamed this subclass because, like, when I think Way of Mercy monk, I think like Oath of Redemption paladin, where it's like no, like trying to avoid combat as much as possible, like lockdowns, grapples, like pinning. Whereas like this class is very aesthetically cool. It's like the Plague Doctor mask, and you can heal, you can harm. But I think just like they should have named it something different, just because like it doesn't really feel like a mercy class.
Yeah, let me just break this down for the folks who haven't checked in this book. Is the Way of Mercy, what it does is when you do your bonus action hit, your flurry of blows, which is the bread and butter for monks, you can, instead of hitting somebody, which is what monks usually do, that's monks' whole thing, you can actually use your bonus action to like pump something like 1d8, 2d8 points of healing into somebody. So yeah, but the functional thing is, instead of
your
punching
martial arts
people,
die. It's like what the damage you would do on a
you
punch,
can
but healing.
punch health into people, or you can like use your knowledge of medicine and whatnot to, instead of healing, you have your harming hand where you punch extra good and can do necrotic damage to people instead of healing. So
I would have gone for like the Way of the Vivisectionist or the Way of the Physician or something like along those lines.
And that's the thing. The art is like you have a plague mask. It's very, it looks, there we go. It's very like medical. And so I love this as like surgeon monk, like I'm going to cut you up with my fists, and or like, you know, hit this chi point and like that'll fix whatever's going on with you. But I think, Adam, you're absolutely right. A Way of Mercy, I was, you're more expecting like a fucking like Buddhist monk, as someone who's like, no, like violence is like a last resort.
Something that's really, really cool with the monks that I literally just read is they've kind of fixed the Way of the Four Elements monk. The Way of the Four Elements monk is a monk that you get access to like spells. You use key points to cast the spells. But the problem was the wording of your like flurry of blows was you had to make it a melee attack and then you could flurry. And so because you had to cast these spells, it was like you had to choose, do I punch something or do I cast a spell? It was always a choice. But now with key fueled attack, if you spend one key point or more as part of your action on your turn, you can make one attack with an unarmed strike or a monk weapon as a bonus action before the end of the turn. So now
cool.
that makes it so you can be like, the art really reflects what it would be. You cast your spell and then you kick a goblin in the dick. But like that's so cool because you can be like a blast of fire and then you can punch the dude who's coming behind you. Like it just creates more monk feeling in the Way of Four Elements, because like I feel like the Way of Four Elements was one of those classes, like Beastmaster Ranger were one of those classes where just like no one, like very few people played Circle of the Land because Circle of the Moon was so much stronger. Circle of the Land's still awesome.
It's my go-to for druids.
It's so
for
good.
Sure.
It's so much fun. But like it's hard not to look at some of the other subclasses because they're stronger. Like Way of the Open Hand is just better than Way of the Four Elements. It's just so strong, like really, really good. But this changes that. That makes you can have really flavorful subclasses that maybe didn't feel as good before, now feel a little bit better because you can do the really cool stuff like blowing up doing a fireball and then kicking a dude in the face.
This even goes back to what you're talking about with the Ranger. Like, the original Ranger, like, it was just underpowered. And, you know, the new Ranger subclasses are, like, pretty fresh. I'm into it. But, like, the original Ranger subclasses, like they were fine, but it was like the Ranger itself wasn't that rad. And so now they, you know, have added a lot of, like, utility with, like, the movement. Now they're the only class that just has, like, climbing and swim speed built in.
Yeah,
they get expertise, which traditionally was only bards and rogues. Like, they didn't even have to address, you know, specific subclasses. They just made the whole thing better. And so,
but not in a way that, like, because that's the hard thing is, like, retroactively balancing a class is so hard to do to not tip it in the wrong direction. And Ranger, like, looking at Ranger, I'm not like, oh, fuck, this is exploitative. Like, I can take this and blow shit up really easily. It catches them up. It evens out the ground. Like,
and it also just makes sense. Yeah. Like, it just makes sense that someone who's good at, like, being a Ranger would be fast and would have expertise in things. Like, it felt like it didn't feel like Ranger was just was just a class that was not as good. It felt like they'd almost been purposely shortchanged in the last one. I'm not saying they were, but it felt like they'd been just overlooked. And now it feels like they've been given some proper thought and some proper, like, consideration.
Favorite enemy in Pathfinder I loved because it was like you hit it, you do 2 extra damage to an enemy that you're, like, familiar with because you understand their anatomy, you understand their weak points. We all know that Limerick would have favorite enemy against giants because he shoots them in the jugular all the time. And they've changed that now. They've changed because, like, in 5th edition, for some reason it was like you were good at tracking them and you could, like, make intelligence, like, history checks about them better. But that was it. Like, you just, like, were good at tracking a creature. And that feels so hard to utilize on a frequent basis. No, you just do an extra D4 on your first hit. And that's not, like, it's not a lot of damage. The damage does go up at D6 at 6th and at D8 at 14th. But it's not like that's not a smite amount of damage. You're not, like, slaying these things in one shot. But you're just better at fighting these things that you've chosen to be good at fighting against. You're good at fighting against dragons. You hit dragons a little harder. You're good at fighting against giants. Hit them harder. And I just think it's, like, such a simple change. And you can do it as a part of an attack action. So when you make your attack action, you mark the target as a part of that attack action.
Yeah. Because that was the thing. Like, Hunter's Mark. Was, like, the spell, and you'd be using that every bonus action. They're like, if you're going to do this anyways, let's just make this automatic.
It is concentration. That is the one downside to this feature. I don't think it necessarily needs to be concentration.
Hunter's Mark was always concentration.
No, I know, but I'm saying, like, this feature, which is replacing favorite enemy, favorite foe, is a concentration ability. So you can't Hunter's Mark end. It's essentially removing the need for Hunter's Mark as a spell entirely.
I don't hate that.
It's
because you'd be Hunter's Marking anyways. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no,
They'd be Hunter's Marking anyways. I looked at what the changes to Ranger, and for the first time ever, I was like, oh, I actually want to play Ranger.
Yeah.
Like, and that's thrilling to me.
Also, just the aesthetics of, like, the Fey Wanderer. You just get your Feywild gift, which makes you look different. So, like,
you got
this art, they've specifically said it's a human. It's like a dude with green skin and horns, and that's fucking cool. Like, you can be a human that looks different. Like,
I just have to keep coming back to these small sort of housekeeping things they've made, but for every class that has some level of, like, oh, you can, you know, customize this. They have a thing built in that every, like, you know,
whenever you would get an ability or feat,
you can, like, we're talking about fighters. You have that fighting style. If you're not loving it, say you don't like being an unarmed fighter anymore, you can just change it.
Yeah.
And, like, that's something that we've all, like, had a thing where it's like, hey, DM, I'm not loving this thing that's happened. Can we change it? And it's like, well, it's not really in the rules, but okay. Now it's just built right in. If you don't like what's happening, change it at the time when your character goes through growth anyways. Like,
my question about it is, when you then reach that milestone of a feat, is changing the subclass, do you still get to pick a feat, or do you still get to do your ability improvement, or is it instead of?
It's not changing a subclass. It's changing features. So like Eldritch Invocations, your Metamagic. So like instead of, say you wanted Twin Shot, but you had, fucking Quickened.
Okay.
You could swap out Quickened for Twinned.
It's in addition to, not in lieu of. But speaking of changing subclasses, that is also a thing you can do now. There is the sudden change mechanic.
But that also happens. Yeah. That also happens at the same time as a feat would or a subclass would normally. And is that in lieu of? I think that's what I was referring to.
Sudden change is just a conversation that you can have with a DM, or a DM can do it to you, which is spicy. But for example, like kind of Callie's journey right now, being like, I'm no longer angry.
We didn't talk about that, but that was cool.
That was
I love that.
An Oath of Devotion Paladin failed to stop a demonic horde from ravaging her homeland. After spending a night in sorrowful prayer, she rises the next morning with the features of Oath of Vengeance. Like that, like something happens really, really bad. Like a wizard falls asleep near the Feywild. In his dreams, he sees multiple futures. School of Divination all of a sudden. And so it's a discussion you can have with your DM, or your DM can be like, hey, this crazy thing happened.
And this has been something that's been happening since the dawn of D&D, and now it's just in the book.
It's in a book. It's just being like, it's basically
a valid
being like
way of playing.
It's basically like the difference between like what is accepted and what is the law, like in society, where it's like, don't do that. That's a dick move. But someone being like, you're legally not allowed to do that. It's a dick move. This is what this book is doing. Is like, you can do that, and that's okay because this is what this book says. Even just they've got a section about homebrew where it's like, hey, homebrew's chill, do it. This is a guideline. It's all guidelines.
And that was always in the first book, where it's like right in the first chapter. It's like, this is whatever works, do it. And then it's just nice that they just return to that and double down on it. Oh, we love it.
Honestly, if you love new classes and stuff, and you don't already have this book, it's a real good one to grab.
I think we are about coming to that time. I think
so.
I do think, and I would say, like, it's definitely like, people always ask like, oh, where should I start? I definitely think, you need your core rules book.
PHP,
yeah. And then you need your, if you're a DM, you need your Volos. And then I think this comes
like skipping the monster manual.
I meant the monster manual. And then literally this one is like, I would say the next one you should get, because it adds adds to the core rules in such a great way.
I would take it over Xanathar's.
Yeah, I think Xanathar's is like a lot of addition that is great and nice, but like I think even like the difference between the thickness, like Xanathar's is one of the thinner source books, and this one's chunky. Like this has a lot to offer.
Yeah, I think it's definitely like a must get. Well, I mean, you can start with the player's handbook, but then like as you become more familiar with the game and you want to find those like little bit more crunchy things that you can do, it's definitely, this book is very crunchy, especially like certain classes and things that it introduces. It's like it's for people who like to tinker with their characters.
I do want to do just a little shout out for, there's a new wizard subclass called like Wizard of the Scribe, and its whole thing is something that basically Jen and I have mostly ignored, where it's like, your spell book. What's your spell book upkeep like? This class is all about really digging into your spell book and how fast you can write in it and what you can write. And when you write stuff in, it's really cool. And I'm like, oh my God, I love this is here. I'm never going to use it. I love that you've done that for those people. I'm never going to use it. Yeah.
I love that you put this in here for M.
I would agree this book is very, very crunchy, but like it's crunch that is built on the like foundation of fluff, because there's so much stuff. To explain to anyone who doesn't know those two terms, crunch is very like mechanical math, crunch
mechanics,
and fluff, mechanics,
narrative.
Yeah. So mechanics,
story,
crunch,
numbers,
narrative is fluff. And so because there's a bunch of stuff where it's just like a ribbon is an ability you get in a class that doesn't really do anything. A great example of a ribbon is one of the paladin ones.
Well, the helmet.
Oh yeah, that's a great example of ribbon. Bonus action, your helmet comes on and off. wearing it, like, there's never been, like, there might be DMs out there that do this, but very few DMs are like, you get hit in the head, you're not wearing a helmet, you take extra damage. Like, that would be a kind of erroneous thing to do. Well, not erroneous, but like,
it'd be a crunchy game. It'd be a very crunchy
crunchy game. But just like, so that's not going to mechanically help you having a helmet or not. But just being able to be like, are we ready for battle? Okay. Like, as is sick. That's really cool. And that's a feature in your class that doesn't really add mechanics to your class. It just adds a cool bit of fluff.
But and I agree. Like, it is definitely crunchier, but it's not overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like, what I love about it is a lot of it is like things you can set up and understand before you sit down at the table. And then it doesn't make the table play much more difficult.
Yes.
Like, there are some times when they add things and you're like, oh, well, now I got to add this dice and then this dice, and like that's crunch that a lot of people scare a lot of people. This is like, you've made your decisions and now you've updated your player sheet. Now you don't need to think about those things anymore. All of those like little, like, oh, I'm going to build my character with this proficiency instead of this proficiency or whatever, that's all decided before you sit down for play. So when you sit down for play, it plays the same, but it gives you more options. It makes your character more customizable.
I know that we're coming to the close to the end, and I'm worried about bringing up this subject because it could take us on a tangent. This might be an extra long episode of chatWater. You're welcome. We will get there. But I'd be loath to not speak about this because, Sean, you've been traveling with one for pretty much your entire experience with Blackwater. What do you think of the sidekick mechanics in Tasha's? Because there's a new set of mechanics for creating and maintaining a sidekick character.
Honestly, I didn't look at it. Like, when I made Clack, I looked at the way they did sidekicks, and I said, this is too exploitable. This is too powerful. I just like the thing that Clack has half the hit points that Letters had. I said that was very simple. And then we basically worked out this thing with Tim where it's like, you know, as long as I don't overuse it, basically once every, like, 8 combats, I can be like, Clack, do something, and he will as, like, a free action. But
I mean, that is essentially what the sidekick is in this.
They
new
just
book.
have too many things, and they're really dependable. You know,
they're
what
really
I mean? Like,
strong. They level up with the group. They're like the same level as the group.
It's the kind of thing that I'm into it. I just don't really have an interest in it in my game.
They don't really feel like a sidekick. They feel like an additional PC.
So I think what the sidekick was created for, in my opinion, is mainly just for people who have a hard time finding a big group. So like if you can only find two people in a DM and you add a sidekick, it just adds, you know, the ability to be a bit more of a balanced party. And then, you know, but we essentially play like a version of the sidekick. Like they say at the very beginning that the sidekick is either something the group plays, it is either something that a character plays who doesn't want to get too involved in the game. So like they want to play like they want to play in the game, but they don't want to do all the rules. They want to play a simplified character. So they become the sidekicks. They get to join in, but it's not a full character. Or it's something that the DM plays. And I mean, that is kind of what Clack is, you know, like the balancing of his strength and stuff like that. I'm not quite sure how Tim does it. You guys might have talked about it before, but it's played by him. So he judges when he gets involved and when he doesn't get involved. And so yeah, I think you guys already play a version of that.
Guys, this is just a class. You could play this.
Yeah, if you want
to fuck around, you could just play this.
Yeah. That's what when I saw the sidekick, I was like, oh, because I made the joke when I first found Clack that, oh, he's my sidekick, without actually understanding that in the Unearthed Arcana there was this sidekick option. And when I looked at it, I'm like, that's too strong. I don't want to be a character who has just a whole nother character following him around. So I think what you pitch, what they've intended for, where it's like, oh, you don't want to play a serious thing, just play a sidekick, forget about it. We love that.
Yeah.
But
I think
it's if you have too few people, it's great to have.
Exactly. And then it's going to be piloted by both other players or by the DM. So the DM can sort of be the third player, but not be quite as powerful, but still pretty powerful. I think that's a good place to end it.
That's our show.
Check it out. There is a lot more in the book that we didn't cover. It is very
Quick list of shoutouts. Quick list of shoutouts.
Parlaying with monsters. That's great.
Quick list of shoutouts. There is Finnan the cleric class. There's like
Order of the Twilight.
Order of the Twilight. There is the anti-wild magic sorcerer, the like sorcerer of law, which is dope. There's the I get bigger fighter class, the runic fighter, warrior, which is wild. There's the I'm a warlock, but my guy's a genie. Like there is so much that we couldn't talk about.
There's monks who have extra hands, ghost hands, baby.
Ghost hand monk. It's great. I thoroughly recommend you check it out. But we love the ghost hand.
I play in a campaign that I play, and I play a monk of the astral, and it's pretty fun. It's a pretty, because it almost feels barbarian-y in the fact that like you're normal and then you kind of like get really worked up and then you get these extra arms and then eventually you get like an extra head that's like a helmet. It's very wild. Cool.
Please check it out. But for now, we love you. Come back Wednesday for Ranger Danger. Come back Thursday for the Frostlands of Fenric. And come back Saturday for the main event with Chris Solo.
To pitch Ranger Danger as well, this is to follow up on what we've just talked about. I have some players who are playing, because they are obstinate and silly, the old mechanics, and I assumedly have some players playing the new mechanics, so you can see a side-by-side comparison on bad and good, because it is empirically bad and good. we can all guess at who's playing the fucking regular Ranger.
Till then, we'll see you later. Be kind to each other.
We love you. Bye.
Astral self.